Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live on SHR Media and streaming live on Facebook. Welcome to the show. I am so very happy to have on the show this hour the one and only Mike Fitzpatrick. He is a cybersecurity expert and CEO of NCX Group. I'm so glad I memorized that because I usually read it off of my notes, which I did not have up for some bizarre reason. But welcome. We're going to talk to him today about why COVID-19 increases your chances of getting hacked. And I didn't think, quite frankly, that there was an application necessarily for cybersecurity and COVID. But then I asked, that's why you ask the expert and you bring experts on your show. Because when I talked to Mike about it, he was like, oh yeah, there's applications for that. Let's talk about it. So we will be talking to him about that in a few minutes. So I'm very happy to have him on the show today, having him returning to the show today. In Money Talk news, of course, number one thing in the news is the White House and the track that they're keeping on COVID. Now, according to the White House, one of the last reports is that their modeling predicts that between 100,000 to 240,000 Americans could die from the coronavirus. And that's with us mitigating, which is, the social distancing and the working remotely and all that kind of stuff. Also, Florida joined Maryland and Virginia and a whole bunch of other states, including my home state, New Jersey, where I live, in issuing stay-at-home orders. I thought that everybody had to stay at home. I keep forgetting that there's states that have the privilege of going out, because New Jersey's been on lockdown for, I think, as long as the whole country has, like 15. And I think because we're a border state of New York City, probably is another reason. New York City, New York State, is another reason why. The Democrats were trying to reopen Obamacare enrollment to uninsured Americans, but the White House has ruled that out. And the healthcare law still allows special enrollment period for those who've lost their jobs. So I suppose, I shouldn't say I suppose, that is a good thing if we have no other mechanism in place. This is frightening if you live in California. 3,500 inmates in California will be released early to reduce the crowding as the coronavirus begins to spread through prisons. This is according to the LA Times. And New York City residents who don't follow social distancing policies may be subjected to a fine between $250 and $500. It's really hard to believe that there are people out there who are not following the rules. I have a mother who is she's considered elderly. I don't consider her elderly. I guess she's of a certain age. She doesn't seem elderly to me. She's quite ornery. But I have a mom who's in that risky age group. I have another relative who's immunocompromised, and I really appreciate it if people would follow the rules and stay home. It's a sacrifice it's amazing what a big sacrifice it is, but it's a sacrifice for all of us. You would think that staying home wouldn't be such a horrible thing until you're told that you have to do it. Another way in which the coronavirus or COVID-19 is affecting different companies. Apple's always been really secret about their new products. And it's really hard to be super secret about your products if all your employees have to work from home. So according to Bloomberg, they are having to adjust their policies that allows people to work from home to have access to the things that they need to have access. So that's kind of an interesting thing that Apple is going through now. This is according to an editor at LinkedIn who was talking about this. Also, security is being put to the test at Zoom. Apparently, there's increased reports of Zoom bombing party crashers that have prompted a closer look at the platform by New York's Attorney General. That's interesting. I have not had a Zoom party crash yet, but that sounds like fun. Sounds like a question for Mike Fitzpatrick when he comes on in a few minutes. It never occurred to me that would be possible to crash a Zoom party. And why would you? Okay, not why would you want to, because it does sound like fun to do. Not something I would ever do, but it sounds like fun. U.S. farmers are speaking out about how they're being affected by the COVID crisis. You never, unless you really think about the economy, you never think this far back. But if you think backward about the fact that restaurants are closed, then they're not ordering food. Then there's no need for farmers to sell for ranchers to sell livestock, or farmers to sell any of their perishable goods. And so the demand for those things dry up. There's no orders coming in because all the restaurants are closed. So the farmers are being heavily affected by that. The farmers and the ranchers are being heavily affected. Again, class of 2020 is facing uncertainty about their graduations. I know different school districts are doing different things. I think we are, even though the school that I teach in, we're supposed to be going back on April 20th. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's when we're supposed to be going back. They're already considering, if I'm not mistaken, a virtual graduation and how that would look. The college that I teach at is doing the same thing. They're looking at how can they do a virtual graduation. I'm not even sure how that will work, but that's what they're looking at. And I don't know. I think graduations are way overrated in my opinion. I didn't walk for either of my degrees, and because I thought I didn't want to put my family through that. Anybody who's ever been through a graduation knows that they're not really fun. Let's just keep it real. So maybe a virtual graduation is the way to go. That's just my personal opinion. Maybe I'm a weirdo. I had relatives who were legitimately mad at me when I got my master's, and I didn't tell anybody until I kind of mentioned it in conversation that I was done with school. And my mom was like, "Wasn't there a graduation?" And I was like, "Yeah, I didn't go." But I don't think students these days are quite as jaded as I am. So it's very uncertain as to how many kids are going to actually have an actual graduation versus a virtual graduation. A virtual graduation sounds kind of cool, though. I don't know. And you don't have to drag your family out in the heat to go to watch 5,000 people graduate at the same time, and you're not even going to be able to see your student. I'm just saying, college graduations are brutal. And then finally, on the fun side, there's a surge in sales for jigsaw puzzles. So somebody's doing well. And I don't think that's particularly surprising. The article that I was reading said that was surprising, but I didn't think that was a particularly surprising trend, since everybody is so flipping bored because they're spending so much time at home. Even if you're working from home, how much work can you do? I mean, you work. You got to take a break every now and then and do something else. So jigsaw puzzle sales are going up due to the lockdown. So somebody out there is making a little bit of money, and that's good. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. Our guest today is Mike Fitzpatrick. He is the CEO and founder of NCX Group Security, and he's going to talk to us today about why it is that COVID-19 is increasing your chances of getting hacked. I have a brand new Ron Edwards notebook coming your way. We'll be back in a few minutes.
The Founding Fathers proclaimed that the United States of America should never drift away from Christian principles. So when I hear about people getting a little edgy whenever God or Christian principles are brought up, I get a little concerned. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook. In 1892, Supreme Court Justice Josiah Brewer penned the Court's opinion, in which he stated the United States was a Christian nation. The court had already decided the issue before venturing its opinion as to the religious character of the country. George Washington warned about the destruction that would occur to our republic if we turned away from the one who shed his grace upon our land. Even socialists like FDR called upon Americans to pray for our victory during World War II. Just recently, President Trump called for a day of prayer regarding the coronavirus pandemic. When I hear about people turning God out or not wanting to hear more than a few seconds about God, I wonder what if God grew tired of our never-ending foolishness, ranging from abortion, communism, the globalist pedophile network, trying to circumvent God's creation of man and woman, etc. Remember, God is the source of life, and without him, it will be death to America. Choose wisely, my fellow Americans. I'm Ron Edwards. Check out theronedwards.com for news updates and other great stuff. Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Don't just pass the IRS exams. Why not pass them all and get a solid tax education too? Visit irsexams.school and let the Tax Mama staff get you started today. All our live and study tax courses offer you the convenience to study online on your own time and have everything you need to succeed. Tax Mama teaches you tax law, practice, and representation from the ground up. That's irsexams.school. Why wait? Get enrolled today in our premium course or the self-study class. That's irsexams.school. It's way more than just a review course. It will improve your entire future.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, and my guest today is the one and only Michael Fitzpatrick. He's a cybersecurity expert, founder and CEO of NCX Group Security, and he's talking to us today about why COVID-19 increases your chances of getting hacked. And without further ado, Mike Fitzpatrick, welcome back to the show.
Well, it is an absolute pleasure to be talking to you as usual, but even more so from lockdown California and from the bunker here at my house.
It's a pleasure to speak to you as well from the lockdown bunker here at the Chateau Melanie. Oh my goodness! Here in New Jersey, we're locked down as well. Oh my goodness. It's really not a good, I mean, it's a good thing in some ways, but not a good thing in a lot of other ways. Before we venture on to the topic, this is, I don't know, your 20th time on the show. Can you tell the audience that is new to you a bit about your background?
Absolutely. Just real quick, I've been in high tech for probably almost 40 years now, and started when I was really early in life at about age 12. But anyway, so about 40 years now, the last 20 years, 18 years have been specifically in cybersecurity. And we help businesses really solve the problem of information risk. I mean, in today's world, you can lose your business in a blink of an eye, as we're seeing now with the virus. And it's interesting that a lot of businesses face problems with viruses, hacks, and other things, both in the physical world as well as in the virtual world. So we help businesses mitigate those risks to their electronic infrastructure, but also we help them plan for events like we're going through right now. I don't think anybody actually envisioned something as global as this in any of the contingency planning that we did. There hasn't been an event like this for 100 years. But so, this is part of something we will add to our repertoire as we go forward and as we look at companies and evaluate them. But again, that's what we've been doing for about the last 19 years, is working with companies to mitigate risk. And
you need it. And now there's a whole new risk involved, not just the health risk with COVID-19, but apparently there are other risks. When we were talking about what we're going to talk about on the show, and I said to you, well, is there any tie to COVID that, has any risk involved? And you were like, yeah.
Just a little bit. I mean, and again, part of the issue, and it really goes into the three main areas that we we practice, which is cybersecurity, business continuity, and incident response. The response to this, far and away, is for people to work at home and to change the work environment that they're in. And then the question is, from an IT standpoint, how do you do that over a weekend? How do you do that when you haven't prepared for it? How do you do that when you don't have the right tools in place? And so much of what IT departments have been working with, regardless of size of business, because even if it's a large school district or a university, like my son is home from his university and everything has moved online. Well, moving online is a subjective statement. So if you have a professor that goes through and records a lecture and just disseminates it via a login, technically, is that online? Yeah, I guess it is. Now, if it's actually teaching something to where they can visually see it and what we would think would be online, no, it's not that.
That's very true. And I think that when people say online, I think they mean all-encompassing anything that's on the internet.
Well, so everybody, and we've talked about this before, technologies, the reason we have the number of breaches that we have now is fundamentally the technology, the building blocks that we use to secure things have, that really hasn't progressed over the last 10 years with the advent of mobile platforms, whether that's an iPhone, whether that's a tablet, a real push and move towards, laptops that are functional on the road in those kinds of environments. And the technologies that we use to secure those things were all developed for brick and mortar buildings. They weren't developed for what we're doing right now. And because of that, it actually, like on a rubber band, if you pull a rubber band to its almost breaking point, you can see the cellular aspect of the rubber. So it leaves holes that things can get through. There's things that are unaccounted for. And so because of the lack of preparation, because executives at all levels, regardless of institution or business, never really took cybersecurity as seriously as they should have, because they never took business continuity outside of the greater New York area over the last 20 years as seriously as they should have. There's a lot of people right now that are going, oh my God, what are we going to do? And they're having an aha moment, and all the things that they want to do right now take years to put in place. So it creates massive security risks, from the basics of cyber awareness training and how you train your employees to anticipate the attackers at their homes, how to set up their Wi-Fi, make sure that it's secure, how that they don't use passwords on home devices, on work devices. These kinds of things, it all changes. And there's no fast fix in the middle of the firefight to deal with that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about my own teaching from home. And just now, everything that all the tools that we use are web-based. Like Google Classroom, for example, Remind. But Remind is like it's an online application, Remind 101, where you can communicate. You can basically text students, and they don't have your actual phone number. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
But what I'm thinking about is, the number of kids that have to log in. And I'm thinking, because it is and I'm just thinking out loud now, like, because it is a school-based server, like, for example, you have to have a school, in order to log into our Google Classroom, you have to have a school-based email address, which means at some point it has to be hitting the school server. I would think it has to be going through the school server. Otherwise, what would be the point?
Well, Probably, maybe not. I mean, from a cloud services standpoint.
Right.
So Google has a list. Users have been set up. It's administered by the district more than likely. But, I wouldn't think that there would be a direct server correlation. Yeah, and I won't even get into my feelings on Google and, the fact that,
that they're evil,
insecure.
Oh, you don't think
they're Google and they track everything you do and you're the product, and when it's free, you're the product.
You're the product, right?
So, yeah.
No, that's true. But yeah, I was just thinking in terms of, I wonder how much exposure there is with all those kids, using Google Classroom from their homes as opposed to using it at school, which is usually where it's used, to the point where there were some kids who didn't realize, and I had to make sure that I included that in my teaching when I used Google Classroom. They didn't realize that it was on the internet. Like, I had some kids that thought it was something that they logged on at school. And I had parents that thought that as well. So now I have to include that, like, this is internet based, meaning you can access this anywhere that you have internet access. But a lot of people didn't get that.
No, and again, it goes to generational education, and one of the points in the chat from my friend Mr. Wilson is that there's a lot of hacks going on because families are using home computers to now do work where the businesses may not have had a chance to provision a laptop or a tablet or something for that employee to use related to work and only for work. So they're device sharing. And so you've got a situation where the kid may be playing a video game or playing in an online gaming forum that provides access, which we've seen in the past from different hacks, provides access to company files. So, there's so many vulnerabilities that get into this from the standpoint that let's say you have an employee that now wants to work in a different environment for the day and they want to get out and get some sunshine on their face, and they go down to their local Starbucks because Starbucks are still open, and they sit outside and they're doing some work on a laptop, providing they're doing the right social distancing, but now they've signed into a rogue hotspot in that Starbucks that has now captured username and pass and now has access to files on that laptop. And unless an employee knows different, that's a possibility. That's a point of attack. The attack surface of businesses has grown exponentially for hackers at this point.
And I didn't think of until you said it the other day. And I was like, wait a minute, that is so true. But I'll tell you how loose it is, at least I will say probably, I've taught in 4 school districts. And I would say that it's pretty loose in the sense that they let teachers use their personal devices all the time, phones, laptops. We're provided with laptops, but they're not encrypted. Like, they're not, like, I've worked for companies where they either encrypted they required you to encrypt your laptop, or they gave you a laptop that was already encrypted so that there were no security issues. Well, so there were less security issues. There's never really no security issues, I guess.
No, and I mean, what you want to do is go through and containerize those devices, from a company standpoint. But then again, you're talking about that typically happens in larger companies, larger organizations, where they go through and create a container either on that laptop or your home device or your tablet that you're using for work towards just work stuff. So there's a firewall, for lack of a better term, in between to where the two don't talk. And so, and they do that with mobile devices as well. A lot of small businesses, it's not that way. They're not going through and putting up a partition on those devices. They're not making those payments. They don't have the IT infrastructure, a lot of them, to do that. And the worst part about this shutdown is just the sheer number of small businesses that are going to be decimated as a result of this virus. Most people don't realize that even with emergency funding, probably only 40 or 45% actually get loans from the SBA during a catastrophic event.
Is that just because of the rules and things that are in place in order for them to get the loan in the first place, or because they have to have a certain amount of profit or whatever the situation is?
This is an interesting discussion, and I've brought this up to a couple of friends, and I'm supposed to be attending a webinar on what's in the CARES package to get an idea. But back in 1998, here in Southern California, in another life, in another business, we were damaged as a result of torrential rains here in Southern California. Literally, the month of February, it rained 28 straight days. We got about 40 inches of rain in those 28 days. The area was declared a disaster area and was eligible for funds. When we went to apply to help make the business whole, we were denied because of the fact we were a new business and we did not have, at the time, 3 years worth of profitability. So they used normal, even though it was all administered through the SBA,
right?
They used traditional banking standards. So if you were an established business with 3 to 5 years worth of profitability, you could walk into a bank and get funding at an interest rate of X.
Right.
Wasn't that good?
Right.
But you could do that. People don't realize that going to a bank with an idea of a new business, you're not getting funded at some bank. That just doesn't happen. That's fantasy world. You get that funding through friends and family and how you bootstrap yourself. So the reality is, and this is true for most every disaster we've ever had, only 40 or 45% actually get funded. I found that out after hammering my congressional rep at the time and finally got that answer out of DC. And that's just the reality of it. A lot of these businesses, a lot of these restaurants, are either going to get hacked, they're going to have a loss of revenues, they're shut down. This is horrible from an economic standpoint.
Do you think that there's a way, and I guess there is, to make a direct connect between, let's say that the business doesn't get affected directly by COVID, but because of COVID, there was some exposure, and there was some cybersecurity exposure, and something happens with the cybersecurity exposure. Like, is your company would probably be able to do something in a way to make that connection for the company. Am I saying that clearly? Do you know what I mean?
So one of the things that every business should be doing right now is, if you have moved to a remote footing, as far as your employees are working from home, is you should have somebody do an external scan at minimum of your network, your environment, your IP addresses, to ensure that you don't have any open doors or windows from a security standpoint, like, remote desktop, a VPN that's misconfigured, those kinds of things. You want to be able to have some assurance that in the move that you've made, that you've locked up all the doors and windows as tightly as you can. And part of that might be a firewall review or a firewall audit to ensure that you don't have open ports that you're not expecting to be open ports. So those kinds of things from a functional firefighting. I got to do this quick for, I don't know, maybe the next 60 days, maybe the next, 120. You got to be able to ensure some level of security and checking that those things have been done.
And I feel like because of COVID, a lot of companies haven't been given enough time to do that. Like I know there are some teachers who never work from home, right? And there are teachers who probably work from home all the time. Now everybody has to do it. So, you probably have triple the amount of teachers working from their home computers and going into the school. For example, you probably heard of Power School. Anybody that has a student probably has heard of Power School or some other type of mechanism that schools use for parents to be able to log in and look at grades and stuff. That's the same thing that we log into in order to place grades and things in there. It also has personal data of the students in there. That's how we get their phone numbers and their addresses and email addresses and stuff like that. So if you have all this, go ahead.
And if any of that got out, Melanie, that would be a FERPA violation.
Right. And for those of you who are unaware of what a FERPA violation is, that's the law that regulates the personal information, protects the privacy of school students before they turn 18.
Well, the part I love, with the college-age student now is the fact that colleges have extended FERPA into adulthood to now protect college students from sharing information with their parents.
I know.
That's a wonderful thing, too.
It's true. It's true. Once they turn 18, and even in like high schools, once they turn 18, we don't necessarily have to contact their parents anymore.
And that's the thing. But FERPA was never meant for that. FERPA was written in 1974 and was meant for K-12 and not for college. I just love how the universities try to get around that. But no, it gets into you have a lot of liability from the standpoint of what could be hacked. And I mean, if teachers are working from their own computers at home, one of the things every district should be stating is make sure that all your patches are put in, that your OS is up to date, that these security measures have been taken, that they provide you a checklist, that you're running some type of antivirus or some type of malware detection, whether you're on a Mac or a PC or a Linux box, that you're doing some basic blocking and tackling in your own personal home environment from a security perspective.
What's really hilarious, and I'm not suggesting that this has happened in any school that I've ever worked in, is when an administrator's email gets hacked. And it's clear that it came from the administrator's email. And you're like,
I'd like to say I haven't heard that before, but I just heard that one about 3 weeks ago from somebody.
And it comes right. And now people who don't really know about that kind of stuff probably don't necessarily understand what happened. But as soon as I saw it, I knew exactly what happened. But I thought that was hysterical from one end, but not so funny if you're thinking about, okay, well, how well, if you can allow that to happen on your work email. And I have so many questions. But I just have questions. When your work email gets hacked, that's pretty special. I'm just saying.
Yeah, not unusual.
I've never had my work email hacked. I've had my personal email hacked before, but not my work email.
What makes you think you're special that your work email hasn't been hacked and they just haven't found it yet?
Oh gosh, don't say that. But you might be right about that. Hopefully nobody sends out an all school email with my email address.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, we know that from the period of time of actual hack to detection, depending upon whether there is a security program in place, something robust, or something not in place. So if there's a security program in place from the time of actual hack to detection is about a year and a half. So if there is no security program in place, the duration of time for discovery of the hack, from hack to discovery with no security program in place, that's 2.5 years.
Wow.
So again, most companies could not tell you whether they've been hacked or not. They typically will find out by accident.
Find out by accident. And by then it's too late. Listen, we're up against the commercial break. When we get back, I want you to talk to us a little bit about how we can personally be affected, not just companies, and how we can protect ourselves if we're working from home. And maybe, I don't know, in my case, I have a Mac. I consider that pretty much virus foolproof, and I'm sure I'm wrong about that. But also my job did not say anything to me about cybersecurity and ways to protect, that I should be protecting the schools, and nothing like that at all. They just said, go home and do it. So if you could help us out with ways that we can protect ourselves from messing up our work environments, that would be great. We're up after the commercial break. Oh, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. After the commercial break, that would be great. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. We're on with Mike Fitzpatrick. He's talking to us about COVID-19 and how it can affect our chances of getting hacked. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Don't just pass the IRS exams. Why not pass them all and get a solid tax education too? Visit irsexams.school and let the Tax Mama staff get you started today. All our live and self-study tax courses offer you the convenience to study online on your own time and have everything you need to succeed. Tax Mama teaches you tax law, practice, and representation from the ground up. That's irsexams.school. Why wait? Get enrolled today in our premium course or the self-study class. That's irsexams.school. It's way more than just a review course. It will improve your entire future.
Southern Sense, conservative talk, Annie, radio chick Bellas, and host C.S. Bennett, co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. Our guest today is Mike Fitzpatrick. He is the founder and CEO of NCX Group Security, and he's talking to us today about why COVID-19 increases your chances of getting hacked. And I was saying on the other side of the break that we probably want to think of ways to protect our home computers from messing up our work life, especially if you use your personal computer for work, and your company has not necessarily provided anything to you. Like I was saying before the break, Mike, that my school that didn't say a word to me about security, about protecting information or anything, or didn't even say make sure you're using the school's laptop that they provided. I've always used my Mac. I very rarely use the school's computer because they're like they're PCs, and I'm not a big PC fan. I'm a big Mac fan, which of course is virus foolproof.
Well, yeah, of course, everything is. But no, I mean, if you're using your Mac, right, or if you're using, people out in the audience are using their computers at home, or whatever device you're on, whether that's a tablet, whether that is a laptop, whether that's a desktop, you want to make sure that your operating system is up to the most current update, that you've updated that device that you're at the most current OS level for it. Because a lot of times they go through and they fix security issues with those updates. And it's absolutely amazing to me, and we see this a lot with Google devices, for example. They'll do the initial, but then they won't go through and do regular updates of the OS over time. Why, I don't know, but they don't.
I feel like Apple's kind of insists that you do the update. I feel like it starts messing up when you don't do the update, and you have to do it on all your devices, right? So if you have an iPad, an iPhone, and a MacBook, you have to update your OS on all of those.
You should. Simply because there's bug fixes there. Because if you leave the bugs in place that the hackers can exploit, then you're giving them an entrance. So you have to constantly update and patch. On the Windows side, it's called patch. There's Patch Tuesdays, typically with Microsoft. So Patch Tuesday, you go through and you go through and you do all your patches within your Windows environment, and it hopefully makes it better. But thank God Microsoft is what Microsoft is.
Now, I used to tell people that when I talk computers, always update your PCs, always update your Microsoft. But I had a period of time that I went through, and I don't know, maybe this was a bug, where when I updated it, it wiped out, it ghosted my computer. Like, totally, and it happened twice. And my computer's never been the same since. And I don't know if that was a flaw with the update and how often that kind of thing happens, but there was nothing wrong with my computer. It was the update that did it.
Well, it's sometimes that happens. It's like anything. It didn't get through QA properly. It created an issue. It's happened on Apple devices, and Apple's really good about turning around and fixing it. You want to make sure that you have some form of malware detection software on your devices. There's companies like Lookout for mobile devices, which is really good. Then there's great tools on the Mac and the PC for virus and malware detection that are really essential, far more on the PC side of things than on the Mac. But if you're not running some form of malware detection on your Mac, that's a mistake these days. So Malwarebytes is a great tool for the Mac for continual scanning of your laptop, let's say, and so laptop or desktop, and I think it's $39 for the year, so it's negligible, but it's a great tool and really helps make sure that applications can't launch on your device that shouldn't be launching on your device. So that's a good thing. Make sure that your Wi-Fi password is strong and good. If you can go through and shut down maybe the SSID of the Wi-Fi device that you're broadcasting from, that would be a good idea too. Go a little bit more stealth in case somebody wants to, sit outside and try to hack your Wi-Fi device and gain access that way.
Now, do people? What is the purpose of somebody doing that? Like, if somebody were going to target me, or Katina's in the Facey chat as well, or Levon, like, what? How? Why would somebody want to do that? Like, could there be a company that we work for where they're interested in getting that information, or they think that there's something about us personally that they would want to know? Like, why would we become a target? I'm assuming that there's something specific people are looking for when they do that. Or am I wrong?
Well, it could be something specific. It could be something as, like baby monitors. You see a lot of that, from time to time, where somebody has hacked your personal Wi-Fi at home, and they are now watching videos of your kids playing or sleeping. So, I mean, it's not unusual. So your first line of defense from an electronic standpoint is that wireless access point in your home, whether that's your own individual access point or your cable company, your, Frontier, whoever your internet provider is. That access point needs to be robust and needs to be secure, and you need to use encryption and the most stringent methods of it from a methodology perspective. That's what you should be doing. I mean, that's just good cyber hygiene.
Good cyber hygiene. That's good.
Thank you.
I never heard of that. Good cyber hygiene, but that makes sense.
Good cyber hygiene, man. You just want to make sure that you go through, you check it, you make sure that, your password is strong and secure. You want to make sure that, good practice maybe at your house is to change the password every 6 months or a year. Because, you might have had guests stay that have the password that, was there temporarily for, whatever, visiting for Christmas Day or New Year's or something like that. And you gave them the Wi-Fi password. Well, they don't need to have the Wi-Fi password for the rest of their lives. So maybe changing that is a good thing to do.
Wow. Like that never occurred to me, honestly. Like I just kind of assumed I shouldn't say this. I never changed my Wi-Fi password for my cable. Like never. Because then I have to change it on all my devices, man.
Well, you'd be really surprised how many of them are still in default mode with the company username and password, which is all, researchable online.
Wait, say what now? Go.
Each Wi-Fi router from whatever your cable company is or whoever your internet provider is comes with a default username and password.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, folks don't go through and reset the username and password for those devices. You can go online and research the make and model that could be in your neighborhood. So it's like here in my neighborhood, from a cable company standpoint, is Spectrum. So not every house has Spectrum. I mean, you've got a lot of folks that may be using other internet providers, but you've got to, from a hacker perspective, you've got a higher propensity of it being Spectrum because of the cable plant that's in the ground. So go online, you search default username and Spectrum, default username for Spectrum Wi-Fi routers, and it will probably bring up something, and then you're able to go try it from a login standpoint, and maybe you get lucky, maybe you don't.
Okay, I naively thought you're gonna laugh when I tell you what I thought. I thought that like each router, like it was like a computer generated password that they came up with. It didn't occur.
It was, the MAC address on each one is different, but from the standpoint of, the router itself, there's typically a set username and password for that device. And that's what all the field techs have, and they're able to troubleshoot with that or go through and do the initial setup with that. And then they try to encourage you people to go through and change that username and password after they leave. Well, okay, maybe 80% do, maybe 20% don't, maybe it's 70% that do.
I think I'm part of the 30% that doesn't. That's terrible. So, I need to do something about that.
You might want to change that. Again, from a security standpoint and working at home, these are some of the things that you need to think about to protect yourself. It's also something that should be thought about from a company or organization standpoint that they should be asking you to check.
Right. And I definitely agree with that. And I don't think, and I think what happens is there's so few people that really know and understand this stuff that my bet would be is that my administration relies on our IT guys to handle all that. And like they would know to tell them to make sure that kind of stuff is covered. I think they would rely on the IT guys to say, listen, we need to make sure this stuff is covered. Like, I think it's a circular, kind of thing that goes on. Like I know both of my IT guys, they never said a word to us about any of that. Well, listen, we're up against the close of the show. I want you to let people know how they can follow you on social media and how they can avail themselves of your company's services if they need to.
Oh, absolutely. The easiest place to get us and check out what we do is at ncxgroup.com, ncxgroup.com. On social platforms, it's at NCX Group. For Twitter, for Facebook, for Instagram, even though there's not much on the Instagram side of it. So we kind of stick with that. LinkedIn, it's at NCX Group on LinkedIn too, to catch me. So that's the easiest way to do it.
Are you still doing the podcast, little sound bites?
I took a break from it last year because, we lost Mom and I wasn't feeling it. But I'm, now that I'm a shut-in and I think I'm probably going to spin it back up and have a few things to say. So, but yeah, Bite Size Security is the name of the podcast, and it's on all the podcast platforms. Or through Anchor is another vehicle to actually find it directly.
Nice. Very good. All right. Thank you so much for being on the show again today. We'll have you back super soon. That was great.
Thank you. Awesome to talk to you. Be well.
Awesome to talk to you too. Enjoy. Stay safe, please.
Will do.
All right. Yep. Bye-bye. I want to thank everybody for listening today at Money Talk with Melanie. I want to thank Mike Fitzpatrick for being my guest today, and Katina and Doug and the rest of the people that I miss. Levon, thank you so much for listening today. Thank you so much for watching and listening. You guys are fantastic. I want to thank the Tax Mama, Eva Rosenberg, for being one of my favorite sponsors. And I want you all to remember that this is very important because after all, it's your money. Have a great week and stay safe.